I shot him 6 times, echoes in the night. Still he kept moving, something ain't right. Shells hit the concrete, blood on the line. Fear in the air, yeah, it's horror time. Welcome to the channel where the shadows stay alive. Sit back, hit subscribe.
What's going on, horror fanatics? I'm Marcus. Welcome to our Shot Him 6 Times YouTube horror movie channel. In this video, I will be discussing Scream 7, while also going back through films 5 and 6, as I will be giving you all a deep dive, extensive breakdown as to why I believe Scream 7 will reveal that the killer in that film is the same killer who killed Dewey Riley in Scream 5 and the same killer who almost killed Gale in Scream 6, and how all of the evidence accumulated, new and old, all points to Stu Macher being the killer that I am speaking of. If you're a fan of Scream and other horror movie related content, please shoot the video a like, it helps with the YouTube algorithm. And if you are a new viewer of this channel, shoot that subscribe button followed by the bell icon for all content updates. Okay everyone, so the 2 scenes of Scream 5's film that I believe show solid evidence that not only proves that Stu Macher was the one making the calls and doing the attacks in these moments, not Richie and Amber, but proves that there are 2 different Ghostface factions with different motives, working against each other, yet going after the same target, is the opening scene and the hospital scene where Dewey Riley is killed. Keep this in your mind. In Scream 6, they doubled down on the idea and notion of having 2 different Ghostface factions working against each other while also going after the same target, with Richie's family killing off Jason and Greg at the beginning, so that they could be the ones to kill Samantha and Tara first, before those 2 could, even though Jason and Greg were basically in so many ways on the same side as they were, and they were trying to finish Richie's movie. I believe Scream 5 laid the foundation for this angle to be further elevated and explored the way that we saw it in Scream 6's film, and by the end of the video, I believe you will as well, if you didn't already. One of the main things that Stu truthers point out in regards to the opening scene of Scream 5 is the phone call between Ghostface and Tara. During the conversation, the topic of elevated horror comes up, to where we hear Ghostface ask Tara what is elevated horror, even referring to it as fancy pants later on down the road, which signals this killer is more old school and has no knowledge of the subgenre and doesn't like how it is perceived. However, what I don't recall anyone mentioning is the fact that in the film, it is confirmed that both Amber and Richie know about the subgenre, because Amber says elevated horror rocks during the monologue scene at the twins' house. Richie, though he hates the subgenre because of its usage through social commentary in Stab 8, his motive for doing a requel, has knowledge of the subgenre, further proving the Ghostface talking to Tara on the phone is not Amber or Richie. Then there is a thing with the video feed that was sent to Tara by Ghostface, where Ghostface is watching Amber through her bedroom window. After doing some digging, it would be very difficult to pre-record a video, then have said video line up with what you are saying to someone over the phone in real time. It would take precise timing and special software to be able to pull something like that off, meaning this video is live, which makes sense because when Ghostface says the line, "Someone's gotta die now," the knife gets raised into the camera at the exact same time. This eliminates Amber from being at Tara's house or on the phone because we see Ghostface watching her, and this eliminates Richie because he was in Modesto with Samantha the night of the attack, further proving this is another set of killers that are making the calls and doing the attack. But the most damning clue of all in regards to proving that this is Stu talking to Tara as opposed to Amber and Richie is the last Stab trivia question Ghostface asks in regards to the original killers in Stab. Ghostface asks Tara to name the killer in Stab. Tara responds by only mentioning Billy Loomis as the killer, which infuriates the Ghostface speaking to her, as they inform her there were 2 killers, with Stu Macher being the second killer. Now, what's important to pay attention to here, outside of Ghostface's reaction when Tara forgot that Stu was the second killer, is how the question is structured as a trick question, similar to the trick question that we've seen used in Scream 1996 with Casey Becker's character, and what it leans into. In the original, Ghostface asks Casey Becker to name the killer in Friday the 13th. She responds by saying Jason, with Ghostface replying, "I am sorry, that's the wrong answer," later reminding her that it was Pamela Voorhees who was the original killer. This shows that Jason overshadows Pamela to the majority of horror fans, and that she is forgotten as not only the original killer in the original film, but forgotten as one of 2 killers in the entire Friday the 13th franchise. The fact that Ghostface uses a similar structure to ask Tara this question proves this killer is someone who feels forgotten about within the legacy of the Stab universe. And with Tara literally forgetting Stu as a killer in the moment, this plays into what Stu truthers have been saying all along about Stu being forgotten about, because Billy always gets the attention and credit as the main killer within the Stab universe. With that said, if it is Stu Macher who was on the phone with Tara, like I assume, with another accomplice doing the attacking, who would that accomplice be? Well, I'll now say look no further than Vince Snyder, the nephew of Stu and the son of Stu's sister, Leslie Macher, who was briefly mentioned after Vince's death by Amber during the monologue scene. The reason why I believe Vince could have been Stu's accomplice, not only because he's Stu's nephew, but it was mentioned by Liv McKenzie that Vince worked at a job with Tara Carpenter, giving him a connection to her. But it was also mentioned by Liv that basically in the lead up to the new killing spree, Vince had been posting a lot of creepy stuff on social media. And if you are one who believes that the Stab subreddit had something to do or has something to do with the cult of Ghostface, then obviously that would definitely raise your eyebrows for sure. But we also see Vince get into an altercation with Chad at the bar scene, where we see him pull a knife on Chad as well, showing the same violent tendencies that is seen from his uncle Stu Macher. He even tells Chad, "I'll see you soon, sweetheart," which could be taken as a hint that he would come after Chad later on in the movie. Also, his vest mirrors plaid materials usually seen worn by some previous killers throughout the franchise. Now, of course, we do see Vince killed off in the parking lot of the bar after this altercation with Chad, but many, if not all, non-Stu truthers question if Amber and Richie were a part of Stu Macher's cult from the Stab subreddit like Stu truthers believe, why would Stu be okay with them killing Vince, or why would Stu want to kill his own nephew himself? Well, I will say I do believe Richie and Amber was a part of Stu Macher's cult at some point leading into the events of the new killing spree in Scream 5. But what I think happened is Richie had his own vision for how a quote-unquote Stab requel should play out and manipulated Amber to go rogue on the cult and do their own thing. Remember, Amber tells Sydney and Gale, "I was radicalized. I just wanted to be a part of something." That comment outlines the fact that Richie may have not been the only person Amber was taking direction from at some point before the events of the killing spree in Scream 5, or the only person with their own idea of a Stab requel style killing spree, and that no matter who was in charge or how it was intended to play out, she was just happy to be involved. So, with Vince being the first kill of Scream 5, as well as the nephew of Stu, I now believe this was done as a statement from Richie to Stu. Yes, Amber may have been the one to kill Vince since she was the one who was closest at the bar, and that would make the most sense, but Richie was in control. And I believe Richie ordered Amber to kill Vince as a message to Stu that he's taken over how this killing spree plays out. There is a line Richie says in the final act of Scream 5 that I will discuss shortly that mirrors what his father Wayne Bailey says in the final act of Scream 6. That is very important, especially in regards to this idea of two different Ghostface factions hunting the same target for their own reasons. But now, let's move on to the hospital scene and focus on another line in the film that I think many of us overlook, especially as it pertains to rival Ghostface factions. The line of dialogue I want to bring to everyone's attention is from the phone call between Ghostface and Samantha during the hospital attack scene. When Ghostface answers Richie's phone, he says, "Hello, Samantha. Richie can't come to the phone right now. He's finding out what happens to people who stick their nose in business that doesn't concern them." If this is Stu Macher in this scene, like many of us Stu truthers believe it to be, and I'll even say even if you're not a Stu truther, still the point of the matter, that line of dialogue spoken in this moment could be interpreted as Richie isn't supposed to be doing what he is doing. He's not even supposed to be present in Woodsboro and inserting himself into a situation that he's not supposed to be a part of. And you can make the argument with that line of dialogue, if Richie was a part of Stu Macher's cult, he may have been a part of Stu Macher's cult in regards to communicating with Stu, but that doesn't mean he was supposed to be involved as a main player / accomplice in this new killing spree itself, which would give Richie good reason to go in his own direction the moment he hears of Tara Carpenter's attack from her sister Samantha. That is not the only moment of the hospital scene that I will be addressing, as the moments leading into and after Dewey Riley's death scene is very crucial in proving this theory is more than just that. Now, the great debate among Stu truthers and non-Stu truthers in regards to Dewey Riley's death scene has always been whether or not it was truly Amber Freeman underneath the mask like the creators want us to believe. Some Stu truthers mention the height of this Ghostface being too tall to be Amber, as well as the physical makeup and the strength it would take to gut Dewey the way that he was gutted, as well as the gutting itself, playing out exactly how Stu Macher had described it in Scream 1996. Non-Stu truthers mention the creative openly admits the height of the actual killer revealed doesn't matter because it's stuntmen underneath the costume performing the acts of Ghostface, which is true, as well as the fact that Radio Silence, the directors of the film, state that it was Amber killing Dewey in that scene, which is also true. All valid arguments, even if most of the Stu side is a lot of theory-based arguments. However, I feel what we should have always been focused on is the bulletproof vest that the killer is wearing during that scene. I mentioned this in an older video I did a couple years back, so this is a refresher just for more context. I mentioned the fact that the reason this couldn't be Amber killing Dewey is because in the final act of the movie, when Sydney is actively firing her gun in the house, Amber hides and puts the costume on for a few moments, but when she takes it off again, there's no vest. That makes no sense at all to me, especially if you want the audience to believe that she knew she would have had to bypass cops at the hospital, so she came prepared by wearing the vest in that sequence, but she wouldn't wear it when someone is literally firing a gun in her house, even though she found the time to go put the costume back on to begin with. As a quick sidebar, my buddy Jordan from Jordan Talks Films mentioned during the first episode of the Raw Footage podcast on Sunday, along with Sister Pam, you guys go check that stream out if you guys haven't already, but he had mentioned the fact that he believes Amber stole the vest from Sheriff Judy's police jeep because when Samantha Carpenter arrives, the trunk door is open, which hints at the possibility that Amber was the one to go in the trunk and steal the vest. And I'm not saying that that's not possible. I'm not saying that's not possible at all, and I can understand why he would think that, but this got my gears grinding a little bit, this got me wondering, did I miss something, So I went back and took a closer look, and the reason why I believe the trunk door is open is because the cops, along with Dewey, are combing the car for any potential evidence or anything that could be missing, meaning I believe it was them who opened the trunk door to investigate. Is it still possible the door was open before they got there and Amber stole the vest? Sure, but that's not what we see, and it still doesn't explain why she wouldn't wear the vest at all times, that it would be deemed necessary to wear it. Some other things to take note of is the shot of Richie looking concerned after Ghostface gets shot, as well as the robe itself. Some fans have always speculated Richie looks concerned when Ghostface gets shot by Dewey because he is concerned that his partner in Amber had been killed in that moment. However, if Amber was wearing a bulletproof vest, Richie wouldn't feel the need to look concerned because he would have known that she was wearing it, especially since we knew he was the one in control out of the two. So it's more likely that he would have advised her to wear one, especially for the hospital sequence. In my opinion, Richie looks concerned in this moment because he knows that's not Amber underneath the mask. Now let's talk about the robe. As you can see, there are no bullet holes in Amber's costume robe that would prove she was the Ghostface who killed Dewey at the hospital. Some would argue that she is wearing Richie's robe in this moment in the final act of the movie. However, when you look at the scene from when Ghostface goes to attack Mindy, and then look at the scene when Richie reveals himself to Sam and Amber takes off the mask, you can see the robes are two completely different robes. The one who attacks Mindy, who I believe to be Richie, is wearing a robe that is shiny, like it has sparkles on it. The robe that Amber is wearing doesn't have the same shiny effect. This not only proves that she did not change into Richie's costume, but it further proves that she was not the Ghostface who killed Dewey, because her robe has no bullet holes present, as well as we do not see her actually wearing the bulletproof vest, like we had seen Roman Bridger wearing the bulletproof vest even after he revealed himself in Scream 3. I'll also mention the fact that in the lead up to Scream 6, there was this leaked image of Ghostface in a bodega scene where Craven Something Scary broke down and confirmed that the robe in that leaked image was a bullet hole for bullet hole match of the killer's robe in Scream 5, Who Killed Dewey. Though that robe was not used for the final cut of the movie in that bodega scene, the fact that it was even thought of to be used at all tells me that the killer from Scream 5 who killed Dewey would be making an appearance in Scream 6, but they chose to scrap it because then it would debunk the director's claims that it was Amber who killed Dewey. So, they found another slick yet somewhat obvious way to incorporate Dewey's killer in Scream 6. More on that here in a second. But before I get into that, let's talk about the final act dialogue from Richie Kirsch that I mentioned earlier. In the final act during his reveal scene, Richie says to Samantha, "I'm glad you're okay, because I really wanted to be the one to kill you." Why that dialogue is so crucial now in my opinion is because this plays into the notion that there were other killers who wanted to kill Samantha based on who she is, and that Richie may have known about it, and that Richie wanted to be the first one out of these killers to do it. This lines up exactly with his father's motive for killing Greg and Jason in Scream 6. He killed them so that they wouldn't be the first ones to kill Samantha and Tara, because he wanted him and Richie's siblings to be the first ones to do the honors. This realization further proves to me that we were witnessing the same thing happening and playing out in Scream 5 that we saw in Scream 6, where we see two different Ghostface factions who aren't working together, targeting the same person. So specifically speaking about Scream 5's film, you're probably wondering what would Stu's motives be for wanting to kill Samantha Carpenter in that movie, especially since her father Billy was his best friend and partner in the original film. We already know why he would want to kill the OG3, but why would he want to kill Samantha, especially when you take into account how close him and Billy's relationship was? Well, in my opinion, it would be as simple as Stu wants to end the Loomis legacy within the Stab universe, because over the years, Billy is the killer who gets the praise. Billy is the killer who gets all the fame and notoriety as being the original Ghostface killer. Stu is an afterthought. People don't even remember Stu being the second killer. So, his goal would be to take out the last known living relative to Billy Loomis. Granted, we don't know anything about Hank Loomis. They never addressed Hank Loomis' status in either Scream 5 or Scream 6. So, Stu's goal would be to take out the last known living relative to Billy Loomis so that he can crush the Loomis legacy once and for all and cement himself as the ultimate Ghostface out of the original two killers. And by killing the OG3 one by one, he would be the last remaining character from the original storyline that would still be alive. So basically, his whole motive would be crush the Loomis legacy on top of ending the OG characters that are part of the OG storyline. Now, whether his plan was to get caught or get away with this, I'll leave that up for you guys to decide for yourselves. What I will say is the reason Stu's plan didn't work out the way he might have hoped for in Scream 5 was because he didn't foresee Richie and Amber branching out of the cult and making a film of their own along the way. Very similar to what Roman Bridger said to Sidney about Billy and Stu making a movie of their own in the aftermath and connecting it to the murder of their mother Maureen's death. Now it's time to move on to Scream 6, which I believe holds the biggest piece of evidence when it comes to linking the unrevealed killer in Scream 5 and 6's films that I believe to be Stu Macher to the upcoming 7th film. The Gale Weathers chase scene, much like some other scenes in Scream 6, but more specifically, the Gale Weathers chase scene is home to many Stu Macher Easter eggs in that film, which include the killer mentioning the fact that Gale has never received a phone call from Ghostface. Only someone from the past, in my opinion, would know that. Also claiming nostalgia for wanting to come after Gale when legacy characters are deemed disposable according to franchise rules. It would be nostalgia for somebody who has came after her before, in my opinion. And of course, the double hands on the knife, the double hands clutching on the knife when pressing down during the attack scene when Gale and Ghostface are struggling on the ground. But there is no clue that points to Stu Macher more than the next clue. A clue I presented in the aftermath of Scream 6's film that I think most fans, Stu Truther or not, forget about. The clue that I'm referring to is the phone number that Ghostface calls Gale from that we see pop up on the caller ID of her house phone. The number reads 707-139-0415, which means this call is coming from Woodsboro, California, as you see confirmed from texts and calls in Scream 5 to Samantha Carpenter from West Hicks and Amber Freeman with their phones having 707 area codes. Before anyone, especially non-Stu Truthers, not trying to hate on y'all, I'm just saying, before y'all say anything, or before y'all say this was the Bailey family, I should say, keep in mind, it has been a few years, so you might have forgot. Keep in mind, it was confirmed by Radio Silence themselves that the Bailey family is from the Midwest, meaning this would not be them calling Gale Weathers in this moment. California is not Midwest. Richie would have had to have had a Modesto area phone number or a Midwest area phone number himself when meeting Samantha, because had he had a Woodsboro area phone number, he couldn't claim that he didn't know anything about the Stab movies, because as we know, that's where the original story and where the history of the Stab movies is based in. This means the only person calling Gale Weathers from this phone number is someone who is from Woodsboro themselves. And ironically enough, in the Scream 7 trailer, though the number itself doesn't show up, as you can see on the top right hand corner of this overlay, we see a private phone number coming from Woodsboro, California, calling Sidney Prescott. So given everything that I just went over for films 5 and 6, the main reason why I believe we could be getting the reveal in Scream 7 that Stu Macher is in fact alive and was actively involved in his own way in films 5 and 6 is because Scream 7 is expected to mirror Scream 3 to some capacity. Just like 5 mirrored the first movie, just like 6 mirrored the second movie. And what did we get in that third movie? We got the reveal of a mastermind Ghostface who was the motivation behind Billy and Stu starting their own murder spree to begin with, in the form of Sidney's brother, Roman Bridger, who was the original mastermind behind Billy Loomis and Stu Macher killing Roman and Sidney's mother, Maureen. So, if history is repeating itself, as they would often say in Scream 2, I feel every breadcrumb that has been laid over the course of the last 2 films in regards to Stu Macher's character will culminate in him being revealed alive, while also following the formula of Scream 3 by revealing he was the original mastermind behind 2022's killing spree and the attack on Tara Carpenter at her home before Richie and Amber changed the course of his plans, while also revealing that he is in fact the Ghostface who killed Dewey Riley in the hospital scene, which would be mirroring how Roman Bridger revealed himself to a great extent, which could also explain to a small extent or to a greater extent, depending on how you look at it, why Roman Bridger will be making an appearance in this film. Maybe Roman himself gave Stu the blueprint in following this formula, like many of us Stu Truthers believe. I love this idea of a revelation for Stu, because then that means we, the audience, were following an unrevealed mastermind Ghostface commit an attack or murder in real time, without being fully behind the scenes, but being behind the scenes enough to where we still don't know the identity of this Ghostface until the time is right to reveal who this could be. I also love it for the fact that if they were to pull this revelation off the right way, this would be considered long-term storytelling that connects everything. something that we haven't gotten since the first 3 movies of the franchise. But okay everyone, that is it for the Scream 5, 6, and 7 related video. Leave a comment down in the comment section below and let me know your thoughts on everything that I discussed. Do you think, based on everything that I laid out in this video, that the killer who killed Dewey Riley in Scream 5 and the killer who attacked Gale Weathers in Scream 6 is one and the same, and that this same killer is the one who is calling and coming after Sidney Prescott in Scream 7? And if so, was the evidence enough in this video to convince you that it will be Stu Macher if you weren't convinced before that it could be Stu Macher? Or are you on board with the idea that there was an unrevealed killer present in Scream 5 and 6's events who will be revealed in 7, but it's not Stu Macher? And if so, let me know who you think the killer could be, excluding Leslie Macher, because that would be the obvious pick. Once again, I am Marcus, and this is Asham 6 Times YouTube Horror Movie Channel. Follow me on all of my social media platforms. Thank you all for watching.